The Alaska Highway isn't just a stretch of pavement, it's the only overland connection linking Alaska to the rest of the United States. Spanning almost 1,400 miles across some of the planet's toughest landscapes, it ties together distant communities and drives commerce, defense, and tourism. Without this route, Alaska would be forced to depend almost entirely on expensive shipping and flights. For Canada, the highway is just as crucial, opening up access to remote towns in British Columbia and the Yukon. These places rely on the road for everything from groceries to emergency medical help and jobs. American visitors bring in tourism revenue, creating a special link between the two countries. But this vital route is under increasing threat. Economic tensions are leading to new costs, as leaders argue over tolls and trade barriers. At the same time, wildfires, made worse by climate change, are closing the highway for days or even weeks, cutting off communities and disrupting supplies. The reliability of this crucial road is no longer certain. What happens here sends shockwaves across North America, impacting prices in Anchorage, jobs in the Yukon, and family vacations everywhere. The Alaska Highway stands at a turning point, threatened by political disputes, economic changes, and the unpredictable power of nature. Looking at these issues shows just how vulnerable our infrastructure really is. The future of this northern lifeline is uncertain. Its story is about more than just travel, it's about endurance, teamwork, and survival. The coming challenges will put the partnership between Alaska, Canada, and the rest of the continent to the test. The real question, can this essential route survive the pressures of our modern world? After the Trans-Alaska Pipeline was completed in the 1970s, a bold new vision took shape: the Alaska Highway Gas Pipeline. The idea was to transport natural gas from Prudhoe Bay, down through Alaska and Canada, all the way to the lower 48 states. This project promised new jobs, economic growth, and prosperity for both Alaska and the Yukon. For a time, it looked unstoppable, a shining example of North American energy ambition. But reality soon set in. The early 1980s recession dried up the investment needed to keep the project alive. Then, fracking technology unlocked vast reserves of cheap natural gas in the lower 48. Suddenly, the costly Arctic pipeline no longer made sense. Why bring Alaskan gas south when cheaper supplies were already available nearby? The pipeline faded into history, becoming a what could have been for the North. Even when efforts to revive the project surfaced in the 2000s, the market had already moved on. Yukon communities missed out on the infrastructure and economic opportunities they were promised. The pipeline became a relic, an ambitious plan overtaken by new technology and changing economics. The North's energy future would have to find a new direction. The takeaway? Even the most ambitious projects can be derailed by forces beyond their control. The Alaska Highway Pipeline story is a lesson. Energy dreams must evolve or they'll be left behind. In the end, it was economic forces that brought the Alaska Highway gas pipeline to a standstill. The immense cost of building through unforgiving northern landscapes soared into the tens of billions. Investors needed consistently high gas prices to make it work, but the fracking revolution changed everything. With cheap, plentiful gas flooding the lower 48, Alaskan gas simply couldn't compete. No company could justify taking on such massive risks and expenses. Environmental issues piled on, crossing fragile ecosystems and indigenous territories led to fierce opposition and regulatory slowdowns. Years of lawsuits and ballooning costs followed, stalling progress at every turn. Ultimately, the mix of financial challenges and environmental barriers proved too much to overcome. The pipeline was abandoned, another victim of shifting markets and stricter environmental rules. The North would have to look elsewhere to realize its energy dreams. Sometimes economic reality outweighs even the grandest ambitions. With the pipeline project abandoned, Alaska turned its focus to exporting liquefied natural gas, LNG. By cooling natural gas to -260 degrees Fahrenheit, it transforms into a liquid, making it possible to ship overseas. This approach eliminates the need for a transcontinental pipeline and connects Alaska directly to international buyers, particularly in Asia. Nations like Japan and South Korea, hungry for reliable energy, are willing to pay top dollar for steady supplies. Alaska's officials are now promoting the state as a major energy exporter, seeking backers for a massive LNG terminal. If this plan succeeds, it could provide lasting economic security for Alaskans. Yet this new direction leaves the Yukon out of the equation. The territory, once set to gain from the pipeline, now misses out on infrastructure and transit revenue from the LNG strategy. Yukon towns still rely on costly fuel brought in by truck. Alaska turns to the ocean, while its Canadian neighbors remain dependent on overland routes. The energy prospects of the North are now moving in different directions. Alaska's LNG gamble is ambitious, but its benefits aren't shared by all. The story of Northern energy has split into two distinct journeys. One region moves forward by sea, while the other is left waiting along the highway. As Alaska looks to expand its reach into international markets, a fresh dispute is emerging closer to home. British Columbia is considering new tolls on the Alaska Highway, a move prompted by US tariffs and mounting economic strain. This proposal would drive up expenses for everyone who depends on the highway, freight companies, tourists, and Alaskan residents alike. The reaction from Alaskan leaders has been intense, with many calling the tolls an unjust burden on a state with no other land connection. Senator Dan Sullivan has responded by threatening to impose new fees on Canadian fishing vessels and cruise liners. The situation threatens to spiral into a costly trade conflict, turning a vital road into a source of international tension. The smooth operation of the Alaska Highway relies on both countries working together. When cooperation falters, the fallout is immediate: rising costs, stranded motorists, and strained diplomatic relations. This toll dispute highlights how even a single road can become a flashpoint for political and economic battles. Resolving this issue will require dialogue, not confrontation. Both countries have a lot at stake. The future of the highway depends on maintaining harmony. Shared roads demand shared responsibility. The decisions made now will shape the North for generations. The Alaska Highway is now facing a crisis brought on by nature itself. A huge wildfire erupted near Fort Nelson, British Columbia, forcing the entire town to evacuate and shutting down a 162-kilometer stretch of the highway. Battling these flames in such remote, rugged terrain is grueling. Thick forests, parched land, and shifting winds make the job even harder. This fire is just one among many raging across the North, highlighting a disturbing trend. Wildfire seasons are becoming longer and more severe. The Canadian government responded by sending in military support and matching Red Cross donations to help those displaced. With the highway closed, Alaska's only land connection to the south was cut off, leaving communities stranded and supply chains disrupted. This event exposes just how fragile the highway is. A single wildfire can bring everything to a standstill. As climate change drives hotter, drier weather, these dangers are only set to increase. What happened in Fort Nelson is a stark warning, a preview of what the future could hold for the North. The long-term survival of the Alaska Highway will depend on how well it can adapt to these changing conditions. The consequences go beyond economics; they threaten the very existence of these communities. Now the battle is on to keep this vital road open as nature's power grows ever more intense. The real question: how do you protect a lifeline when the world around it is burning? The impact of the wildfire is felt most deeply in the lives it disrupts. Families from the Tetsa River region and the Fontas First Nation were forced to evacuate, leaving behind their homes and cherished memories. Many travelers were left stranded, their plans thrown into chaos by abrupt closures and unpredictable conditions. Truckers watched helplessly as their perishable cargo spoiled, with supply routes grinding to a standstill. The Alaska Highway is a lifeline, delivering food, medicine, and vital goods to Alaska and the Yukon. When the route shuts down, store shelves empty quickly, and communities feel the strain. The crisis revealed just how vulnerable the North's supply chains are. A single fire, landslide, or collapsed bridge can trigger widespread disruption. Officials must weigh public safety against the need to keep the highway open, often choosing caution. It's a powerful reminder that nature can upend even our most careful preparations. For those caught in the turmoil, patience and perseverance are put to the test. The toll is tangible: anxiety, uncertainty, and loss. The Alaska Highway story is ultimately about the people whose lives depend on it. In the North, survival means coming together and adapting to whatever challenges arise. The devastation from Canada's wildfires extends far beyond the immediate blaze. Smoke from British Columbia and Alberta has drifted for thousands of miles, casting a dense, hazardous haze across North America. Air quality warnings have reached places like Minnesota and Toronto, and even faint traces of smoke have been recorded in Europe. The health dangers are significant. Tiny particles in the air put children, seniors, and people with respiratory or heart issues at risk. Authorities recommend staying indoors and using masks, as millions are affected by fires burning hundreds or even thousands of miles away. Experts connect these massive fires to climate change. Hotter weather and drought are turning forests into fuel. The problems facing the Alaska Highway are part of a much larger worldwide wildfire emergency. Solving these issues demands urgent climate action and cooperation between nations. Political tensions, economic changes, and relentless wildfires are creating a daunting situation for the North. The future of the highway relies on adaptability, creative solutions, and working together across borders. The outcome matters deeply for local communities, regional economies, and the natural world. The Alaska Highway stands as a real-world test of how we confront the challenges of our era. Ultimately, its destiny will be shaped by the collective decisions we make. The path forward is uncertain, but the urgency for action has never been greater.